What's going on, family? Welcome back to the SnipeAthon. We had some technical difficulties this week, so no traditional intro, but this is the SnipeAthon where we're going to grow $5,000 to $10,000. This is a public trading journey. I update YouTube and everybody in the Telegram chats every week, but we just came off of Passover. I really hope that everybody enjoyed their Passover and got something meaningful from it, and just remembered, what Passover is, what it's about, and why it's so significant. But without further ado, let's go ahead and get into the results from last week. And it's actually, sorry. Here we go. So here's the results from last week. It was a uneventful week, to say the least. Not only were the markets not really moving, just a lot going on as far as the holidays that were going on that some people celebrated. Then, of course, we had Passover. Me and my family was traveling, and I'm actually still in Atlanta, Georgia right now. This is why you see my environment, the background. It doesn't look the same. We're actually at an Airbnb right now. But it was just, it was Sabbaths going on. It was Passover, and then some people celebrate Easter and recognize the resurrection, and so the markets really didn't do a lot last week. What I seen was a lot of consolidation, which we'll go over. So the starting balance last week, was $5,005.17, and it ended with $4,980.32. So because we didn't take any trades, nothing really changed. I didn't have any notes. And this week's focus is still just looking for something familiar, right? Because we're in consolidation right now, and I haven't seen anything that looks good to me. So that's pretty much it for the weekly update. As far as what we have for this week's agenda, we always go over the news forecast as far as what's coming up for the week. We're going to review the dollar. We'll review the euro versus the pound. Then we'll go over euro USD as always. And then I'll let you guys pick a random pair for me to analyze. And then we'll close out the call. Hey, what's going on, John? Welcome. Good to see you on the call, man. John Marsh, shalom. Shalom. Welcome. My guy Khalil, shalom. He actually made it. Him and his family made it down to Atlanta and joined us for Passover, and that was beautiful as well, to meet him and his family in the flesh. Again, I appreciate y'all, miss y'all, glad to see y'all on the call. So let's get into it. While I'm pulling this up, we might as well just go ahead, whatever you guys have in mind as far as what you want me to analyze, just go ahead and drop that in the chat, and I will bring up the news. And we always use my FX book, and I only look at red folder news. So give me a quick second while I pull that up. Here we go. Make sure you guys can see that. Let's make that a little more visible. All right, there we go. All right, so here's what we have for the upcoming week. On Tuesday, we don't have anything going on Monday. That's already passed. So for tomorrow, we have employment change. That's going to be at 8:15 in the morning. Just a heavy news day on the United States dollar. From what I've been seeing, I can't really hype this up, right? I can't hype the news up because when I see the news releases, the reactions to the news releases really aren't, that significant, but it's still something to pay attention to and just be wary of, because we'll see more movement than usual during these times. So at 8:15, we have employment change, and then durable goods news release is going to be at 8:30 a.m. So that's tomorrow on Tuesday. And on Wednesday, we have some red folder news for the euro. It's going to be at 5 in the morning on Wednesday for retail sales. And then FOMC minutes for the United States dollar. And that's going to be at 2 o'clock Eastern Standard Time on Wednesday. Now, that's going to be something to look for. Not because nobody's really trading around 2 o'clock, but it will be something to pay attention to as far as what is the result of that news release. What liquidity is going to be taken, what direction is the market going to look like it's going, and then what are they going to talk about in that meeting. And then on Thursday, we have the Japan yen with consumer confidence. So for anybody trading anything against the Japan yen, I know one of my students trades the pound versus the Japan yen. So at 9 o'clock on Thursday, or I'm sorry, at 1 o'clock in the morning on Thursday, we have consumer confidence. So be looking for volatility. Then we have the balance of trade for euro at 2 o'clock in the morning. And then a lot of news releases at 8:30 a.m. for the United States dollar, right? GDP growth rate. And this is something to pay attention to. So Europe celebrates Good Friday and then Orthodox Good Friday. I don't know too much about their culture and what that means for them, but I do know it's a national, like a bank holiday, similar to the bank holidays we have here in the United States. And what that means is there's going to be less volatility in the market because they're not going to be participating in the market. So at stat going to be at 8 o'clock at night. Just expect to see volatility actually decrease because they won't be participating in the market. And then on Friday for the United States dollar, again, multiple red folder news releases at 8:30 a.m. And that's going to be on inflation rate, which we should see some movement from that as well. So Friday is another day to be looking out for the United States dollar. Right. All right. So John Williams wants us to look at US 30. That will be no problem. How was everybody's weekend? How did you guys enjoy being with your families? Did you go out of town? And then for those of you that recognize Passover, what was that like for you this year? Did you learn anything new? Did you have any breakthroughs, any testimonies, to give? Go ahead and drop that in the chat. And so next we will get into reviewing the dollar because of course we want to know what the dollar is doing because the dollar is paired against a lot of pairs that we trade, right? The United States dollar. Right. John Marsh said he had a blessed Passover in GA. Hallelujah. Hallelujah. If you don't mind me asking, where did you guys recognize Passover at? Let's see here. While I pull this up. All right, here we go. We have the United States dollar here. And let's see what we have going on this week. Let me make sure you guys can see this. There we go. All right. Okay. Before I get into the dollar, let me just check out these comments that are coming in. So Khalil said, "Feast is more important than my spiritual, to my spiritual than I could ever imagine." And hallelujah, I can attest to that. And if you don't mind me asking, if you want to, if you can expound a little bit on that, like, what is it that made you realize that the feast is more important, to your spiritual? All right. Miss Allen said it was wonderful. Took my daughter on a 6-day cruise. Nice. Hey, what's going on, Joe? Welcome to the call, man. Welcome to the call. All right, so let's get into the dollar and what's going on. Again, like it's been for the past 3 weeks, we're still playing around in this ascending channel, and we're still playing around in the area of consolidation, which you guys are familiar with by now. And to be honest with you, I really, if you look at it, we have an area of consolidation, and that area of consolidation can actually be moved at this point now all the way up here. So now we've actually expanded the range, of the consolidation. And so with that being said, especially everything that's going on in the world right now, it is very unpredictable. I mean, I don't want to get too much into what has been going on in politics, what's been going on with the war, especially with Passover just happening. I'm still spiritually full off of that. And so I don't want to get too much into it. But what I will say about it is that there's a lot of uncertainty. That's all I can say. Politicians and presidents, kings are saying things, making threats. And I think people are kind of like waiting to see what's really going to happen, if things are really going to happen, and how things are going to play out. And so we see that reflecting in the market, right? So with the dollar, um, the range has expanded, and we're at the top of that range right now. And if we focus on where we are, we're actually in price has really been playing around in this area right here, right? This is where we are currently with price. And so we've created consolidation within consolidation. And so at this point, it really is just waiting for a significant move. It's really just waiting on a breakout, whether it be out of the top of this box, out of the top of consolidation, and we hit this channel, which that might be a trade opportunity. Once we get to the top of this channel, because it's been playing off of it so much, there may be an opportunity to catch a reaction there. Where if it's selling on $1, that means I would be buying on EU, right? Or we get some movement going back down towards the bottom of the consolidation, which again I would be looking for some sort of reaction. This is where I see the opportunity at. I'm seeing a reaction happening at the bottom of consolidation. And so those would be some of the first trades that I would take, are just the reactions off the top of the channel, or if we come back down to the bottom of this consolidation. Now, what I ultimately want to see is the dollar just completely break out of the channel and out of consolidation, and head up for the sell zone that we have here, right? Which that would be the first sell zone. We have a major area of supply where the market sold off. And so I would expect a reaction from there. And then ultimately, we've been really waiting on this market open gap to fill, right? And that market open gap is from back on April 2nd of 2025. Right. Yeah, that happened back in April. Yep, April of 2025. So that's what I'm looking for the dollar. Or we could always get a break out of the bottom of consolidation, retest, and this is where I would see the market actually starting to move, and I would be confident in selecting a direction. But as far as the direction of the dollar right now, we are still undecided. We're still undecided. Let me make sure everything is still right. Okay. Yeah, we're still undecided on direction. And so, like I've been telling you guys, I'm approaching the market with a stick and move type of mindset. So getting in, getting out, not looking to hold anything for any particular time in any particular direction. All right, let's get back to some of these comments, because I'm really interested in people's experience with Passover. So John Marsh said, I was spiritually fed this Passover in Douglasville. Hallelujah. Christ being our Pesach lamb. Yep, I'm forever grateful. Same here. I Kane. It was really I mean, it was educational, and then for me, this was my second Passover. The first Passover that we recognized, me and my family, me and my wife and my daughter, we recognized it at our home. But this was different, actually, communing, congregating with our tribe, and then being educated, by our moray and the elders, and getting a deeper understanding of what Passover is and what it means, and what Yeshua did, and the example that he left for us, not only in his walk, but just the wisdom that he left the disciples in the Last Supper, and then the humility, of washing his disciples' feet, and that being an example that he left for us to say, who are we? You know what I mean? Who are we to be puffed up? And that even goes back to the leavened bread, right? Or the unleavened bread, making sure we getting all the impurities out of us and the things that make us puff up. It's a very insightful story. Sorry, y'all, it's my daughter. um, Let me see. All right, so Khalil expounded on what he was saying. He said everything the Most High um, has instituted is intentional and pertinent to His plan for His people and man in general. Absolutely, absolutely. The real architect, the real great architect, planned everything to the T. Right, timing is always perfect and on time. And he said, Passover and unleavened bread is our spiritual repartation to our God and our position to being priests to the nations. Yeah. And that was a really good takeaway. That was a really good, addition to everybody else's take on it. That one really stood out to me too. That spiritual repartation, especially when we talk about the Passover, not only the supper that Yeshua had with the disciples, right, where he was about to pass over, and the just the connection and the way Yah set that up is just it, man, Yah is good. All right, y'all. So let's get into looking at the euro, which similar to DXY, or I'm sorry, let's get into the euro versus the pound. So anybody who doesn't know, I always look at the euro versus the pound, because this really gives me an indication on how strong or how weak the euro really is. And if I'm looking at the pound, it just gives me an idea of if it's really strong or if it's really weak, right? So again, like everything else, we're sitting at the top of consolidation, and there really is no particular direction that this seems to be going. And so, same thing, right? It's nothing really to do here but wait. It's a waiting game. Are we going to get a breakout at the top of the consolidation and a continuation, or are we going to start heading back down to the bottom of consolidation, showing weakness, for the euro? And just to give you guys an example of like why I use this, let's say the dollar is bullish and strong and going up. If I come over to Euro GBP and I see it going down, then I know that it's really weak, because not only is it weak against the dollar, it's also weak against the pound. And so I'm more likely to have successful sales on the euro, if that makes sense, right? And if that doesn't make sense, I can give another example. But this is the reason why I really like to pay attention to the euro versus the pound in tandem with the dollar and euro USD. Now let's head over to the euro so you guys can see that, and then we'll head over to US 30. Again, I'll just box this up. Not a lot going on. Not a lot of is not a lot of action this week in the markets. All right, so we have more consolidation. Send this to the back. And same thing, guys. Same thing. Just waiting on a break out of the top of this box or the bottom of this box to really be confident with getting into a trade. All right, John. So let's look at US 30. Hopefully we have something more exciting to look at on US 30. Let's see. So we actually marked this up. Somebody had me look at US 30 a while ago. I think it was February 16th. I think we were analyzing this, but I marked up the liquidity of the trend line. And as we can see, they have taken that liquidity out. I was expecting a reaction here, and that happened, right? Came down. The first reaction was right here. And let's see how many pips. Let's see how many pips it reacted. Wow. That was a 19,000 pip reaction. So that went up 19,000, almost 20,000 pips from that buy zone. And then the second reaction was 10,000 pips. All right. So it looks like we broke below the buy zone and actually broke structure here. This was major structure, which is why I think there's been a lot of talk about what's going on with the United States stock market, because this has been the first major break of structure since this has been the first major break of structure since since 2025, since back in March of 2025 when we broke this low here and the market started to sell off, and then it recovered, right? But the way it's been recovering is it really doesn't make sense. And we all know that the United States stock market is being held up by rotten stilts. And it's only a matter of time before it really starts crashing. But it looks like the U.S. economy is starting to weaken. As we can see, right? We know what's been going on. We've broken major structure here, and even though we're starting to recover, I don't expect it to continue, higher than this high. And if it is, I believe it would be manipulation to go even lower. So let's look at what the pullback would be for this. So we pull from the high to the low. See, we stopped here, and we're approaching about that 38%. Now, if this is a strong downtrend and it's a lot of weakness, more than likely this is where it's going to reject from. But more than likely it's probably going to come up to the 50, even the 618 before it starts like really selling off. So for anybody trading US 30, if I traded US 30, I would be looking for reactions around the 38%. So we're on a daily right now, which means I would drop down to the 4 hour, 1 hour, 15-minute, look for a structure to form around that level. And then, I would expect it to continue up to the 50% where I would expect another reaction. And I would try to put on like another runner just in case it continues down from that point. And, set that at break even and expect it to possibly revisit the 618 and 70%, where I will also put a running position on in hopes that it would continue selling off. But in a nutshell, just looking at it from the higher time frame, based on timing, based on what we know is going on in the world, I'm expecting US 30 to continue selling off. And our next stop, if we break this last low that was created, let's say it retraces 50% of the move. The next stop would be the 127, the 127% extension. And we'll mark this up for future. Then the 1618, and then 200%. And we'll look to the left and see what that lines up with technically. And of course, those are significant levels. I mean, we already know. I mean, look at that. Look at the way price is playing off of those levels. Now, as far as what's going to happen in between tonight, the London, and tomorrow, because we did break back above this buy zone, they cleared a low. Not only did they clear a low and then, basically swept, they swept this low here and then they swept that low, that major low over there to the left. It looks like we're bullish right now, but temporarily, right? If I was a scalper, I'm looking for buying opportunities. So let's mark this up on the 4-hour. Have what I would call a institutional candle here. Let's drop down to the 1-hour. Then we got an area where it gapped down, went up. Yeah, and then we got some imbalance over here to the left. Yeah, so on US 30, John, this is what I see. I see imbalance over here to the left. I see bullishness from a zone that was broken through and then broken back above. And so we're kind of like, this is what I would call a mitigation zone, right? Because we should have sold off from this point when they came up and retested it, but they didn't. They're kind of playing above it. And so this is bullish structure to me in the short term. And then, of course, we got our IC here. We got another IC. John, you already know to follow the footprints. If we follow the footprints, we have our move here, broke structure, came back down into that move again, broke structure. And so that next area to buy would be here. And I'm not sure what your risk appetite is for US 30, but again, I would be in and out. And if it breaks below this buy zone, remember you're still within a bigger buy zone. And so I wouldn't quit, buying, just because that one, went. In order for me to stop buying, it will have to break back below this low down here. Right here. If we break back below here, then I'm expecting it to continue lower. And that's what I have for US 30. What you think, John? What you think of that? Okay. No problem, man. Is it anything else you guys want me to look at? John says he's in agreement. Hallelujah. Is there anything you guys want me to look at? Um, I know it was a long weekend. You guys are people traveling, things like that. BTC, Bitcoin, got you. Okay. Silver. Okay, all right. Oh, y'all on it. Y'all want to work tonight, huh? Y'all want to work. Y'all want to put me to work. Hey, all praises to the Most High. This is what I'm here for, servitude. That's another thing that I took away. Um, it's another thing that I took away from Passover, and really just learning more about what Yeshua did that night, before he was crucified, uh, washing his disciples' feet. Like he was the master, right? He was the master. He's the king of kings, like just unblemished, perfect, and he humbled himself to the point where he even used his own garment, to dry his disciples' feet. And so that was a perfect example to me of what we call being a servant leader, right? Being a servant leader. I think the way um, the society that we came up in, the way leadership is viewed is somebody is at the front, somebody is at the top, somebody that's above everybody, somebody that's more powerful and more important than people, somebody that's telling people what to do, right? And that's not the leadership in the kingdom of Yah, right? It's about being a servant leader. It's about being you know humbling yourself and lowering yourself and not putting yourself above people. And that's where the growth and the seeds are really planted, and where the real work is actually done. That's where the blessings actually come from, is powerful people humbling themselves, and teaching people. So let's get into silver first. Yeah, like I said, y'all, I'm full, and I got a lot that I want to share with y'all. I just didn't have time to put the lesson together because we're on the road. But Passover is really deep. Not only is Passover deep, like the actual Passover, the first Passover that we had when we were delivered out of Egypt, but even the Passover of Yeshua Hamashiach. And then, Easter, what that means, what it comes from. It's just a lot. It's a lot I want to educate you guys on. And I'm going to get to it. Once I get back in town and I have time to put a lesson together, we're going to go over the real origins of Easter, because even I thought I knew what the origins of Easter were, and I didn't. I learned something new this weekend. All right, so here we are on silver. Let's start with the daily. Similar to gold, it's been selling off and weak, which kind of doesn't make sense because of what's going on. But we also had I see we had a little rebound here, and it looks like we took out some liquidity here. So looks like they ran down, price pushed down pretty aggressively, came below the low, took the lows, and now we're starting to rebound. We created a high right here. We created a higher low and a higher high. And so I can already see that within this time frame, maybe when we drop down to the 1 hour, we have we have some sort of trend going on, and more than likely there's going to be an opportunity to buy on the short term. But overall, silver is bullish, and that makes sense technically and fundamentally because of what's going on in the world. We know silver is another one of those safe haven type of deals where precious metals, investors usually push money into precious metals during times of uncertainty, and during times of war. All right, so we know we're in the uptrend overall. Let's drop down to the 4 hour. Look at structure. Again, we have somewhat of a uptrend happening, and I also see a channel. So let's go ahead and mark this channel up. Got the bottom of the channel and the top of the channel here. And so silver seems to be following the channel right now. Mhm. Next major level of resistance. Just say that's going to be right here. So that's the area that we're looking for price to break above for a potential continuation up. But as of now, we're following this channel. All right, so let's drop down to the 1 hour. All right, and as we drop down to the 1 hour, we see we have imbalance here to fill. Not only do we have imbalance, we have like some liquidity. We have some highs that are being created. So it's somewhat of a consolidation zone here. So they've been collecting orders on both sides, and they've done a couple sweeps to the bottom already, um, retapping that channel. We got a lot of space and opportunity here for the market to continue up. With higher time frames supporting bullishness. All right, so I mean, price action looks, it looks wacky like everything else. It's just been consolidating. They're collecting orders on both sides. I wouldn't be surprised if they went down further again, but this let's box this up here. Trying to get my colors together. All right. So how do we get here? Sorry, y'all. Okay. All right. So we have consolidation here. And as always, we just mark up looking for that breakout. But I would like to see that imbalance get filled, or we break out of the bottom of the consolidation, out of the bottom of the channel, right? Hopefully get a retest and then continue down, clearing more liquidity. But what it's looking like more than likely it'll continue up. And so that's what I see for silver, John. Consolidation, imbalance to the left, and we just waiting on a breakout here. I don't see any clear entries. This would have to be a break and retest scenario, in my opinion. Or you wait for it to come to the top of the channel, look for that sell, or wait for it to break out of the bottom. All right, now let's head over to Bitcoin. See what we have for Bitcoin. All right, so I think we must have looked at this before, because I see I have it drawn up in a channel, and then I see the two levels. I remember marking this up, and I said these were the two areas that I see it revisiting price level. So I marked up on the lower end. If it sells off, I see it revisiting 45,500, right, which would be this line here. And then if it goes beyond that, I believe the next stop would be 31,000. Yeah, because I remember Khalil saying, "Sheesh, like thinking to go that low." Definitely the way Bitcoin moves. But if not, if we continue up, then I'm looking at next stop being 150,000. And after that, 200,000. But from what I'm seeing, the weakness starting, we broke major structure on the weekly, right? Remember, we going back to basics of market structure. Same thing with the with US 30, what we were looking at. Major structure on the downside hasn't been broken in a while. The last time major structure was broken was back in April of 2002 when we had this big sell off here, right? We broke major structure here, and price dropped from what's that 46,000 all the way down to 15,000. Now imagine that, right? Imagine that. Seeing price go up to 45,000. People who had Bitcoin, and they rolled it all the way up to 65,000, and then it started to sell off, and it dropped to 30,000, and then from 30,000 dropped all the way down to 15,000. And can you imagine how many people sold their Bitcoin thinking that it was going to crash because they weren't familiar with the cycles and how it's been doing this for years now. I mean, almost 2 decades. But yeah, that's the that's been it's been a while since we had a major break of structure. So we've had a major break of structure here, and so I see weakness in Bitcoin. Um, we're forming some consolidation here. We're collecting orders. We do have a little bit of imbalance, and so maybe it does come back up and sell off, but I see it going lower. I see it selling off lower and making more lows, back down to this 45,000, back down to this 31,000. And let's keep in mind what's going on. Again, we got to keep in mind what's going on in the world, right? What are these investors doing? What is the future of the world? Now, is that Bitcoin? I'm not sure, but I know it's going to be some type of cryptocurrency. And so there's opportunities for these investors, for these banks to manipulate the market, to drive price of cryptocurrency down by different tweets and different events going on in the world. And so if you look at the timing of everything that's going on and you look at the price levels, to me, 45,000 and 31,000 is a prime time to buy. That's premium. That's premium discount, in my opinion. And I say that as with a disclaimer that trading and investing does involve risk and nothing is guaranteed. And I am not a financial advisor, but that's what I would do. If it dropped down to 45,000, if I invested in Bitcoin, that's where I would buy in between 45 and 31,000. But let's go ahead and drop to the lower time frames and see what market structure is telling us. So market structure is telling us consolidation, like everything else, uncertainty. Consolidation means uncertainty. Don't know which direction to go. Collecting orders, people buying, people selling, people buying, people selling. Either way, it's gonna break out. And with this, because I see weakness in BTC, if we see a rally up, if we see the market go bullish before it goes down, I'm still banking on a sell. I'm still banking on it selling off. Maybe we clear out some of these people who have been selling, right? We hit some stop losses, take some liquidity, and then we continue down. But let's go ahead and mark up this consolidation. because that is all that's going on, guys. Consolidation all across the board. All right, so that's what I have for BTC, and that's what I got for tonight. We're approaching 10 o'clock. It's 9:51. We're gonna go ahead and wrap this call up. Let me go ahead and check the comments before I get off. Silver BTC. So Khalil wants to know, do you think now is the time to start entry or wait for more blood in the street? I'm not sure if you were talking about silver or Bitcoin. And then when you say, is it time for an entry, do you mean for a buy or for a sell on whatever pair it is? Yep. Yeah, John says, we thought that was likely, but you were dead on. Joel said he wishes it would go down to 10 cents and we can all get in. Shoots up to 150K, 200. I wouldn't even wait for it to shoot up that high. If I got in at 10 cents, I'll wait for it to go up to about $5, $10 and be done. Oh. All right, guys. That's gonna wrap it up for this week's SnipeAthon. I really appreciate everybody hopping on the call, everybody sharing their experiences and their takeaways with Passover. It's always good getting on here talking to y'all. I really appreciate the support. Like I said, it's a lot of uncertainty going on in the market, so I don't know what this week holds as far as trading, if I'm going to place trades, but at the end of the day, it's about being disciplined, not rushing things. I'm going to continue to do what I've been doing and really just wait. I can't force the market to move for me. I got to sit and I got to wait, for it to show me something. Oh yeah, no problem, y'all. No problem. Everybody have a good week. Remember, becoming a master trader isn't about mastering the markets as much as it is about mastering yourself and discipline before profits and faith over everything. I will see y'all in the chats on the charts. And for some of y'all, we'll see y'all next week on the next SnipeAthon update. Love y'all. Be blessed. And I will see y'all later. Peace.